So you want to play the new game, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin. Well, before you do, here are some tips and things to know before you press play. First off, the setting for the game is the Age of Sigmar. If you've heard of the word Warhammer, it's probably related to the recent games about Warhammer Fantasy, which is a very Tolkien-inspired universe, or Warhammer 40k, which is guys in big armor fighting their way through space. Age of Sigmar is relatively new, introduced in only 2015, but it takes everything you know about traditional fantasy and turns it up to 11, with bigger guys, bigger armor, and more magic. Instead of taking place on a single planet, Age of Sigmar is divided into 8 realms, which work a bit like pocket realities. There's a realm of death, a realm of life, and a realm of really pretty architecture. This game, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin, takes place in the bestial realm of Gur, a reality that takes the predator-prey relationship to the extreme. Everything is trying to eat something else, including the planet itself. If you play the main campaign, you'll be playing as a Stormcast Eternal, who are sort of like angelic foot soldiers sent out to pacify these horrifying realities, all in the service of their benevolent good guy god, Sigmar. As with anything Warhammer, though, good is a relative term, though clearly the Stormcast Eternals are the poster boys for the franchise. At the game's launch, you can pick between 4 factions to play as. The Stormcast Eternals, who are a heavily armored, versatile squad with lots of buff and crowd control for enemies, but their units are very costly and they only have average mobility on the battlefield. The Auric Cruel Boys, who offer cheap units, surprise attacks, and strong defensive squads, yet lack strength in early game, relying on buffs from their hero units and only reaching full power with their monsters near the end of a battle. The Night Haunt, who thrive with using swarm tactics, bringing diabolical horrors to the battlefield and have high mobility. They can resurrect the dead to continue fighting, and although their units are individually weaker and vulnerable to range, you can always just swarm your enemies with lots of cheap chaff. And finally, the Disciples of Tzeentch. They're deadly at range, use powerful magic spells to control the battle, and can bring the astonishingly powerful Lord of Change unit to control the late game. Their units, however, do come at a very high cost, and they lack the defensive capabilities of other factions. Knowing the strengths and weaknesses of each is important because this game is built on traditional RTS dynamics. Every faction has a playstyle, and really you should try them all to find the one you like the most. Combat in the game is built around the traditional combat triangle. You have units with a shield icon that have high defense and are strong against the bow icon ranged troops, who are obviously good at ranged attacks and are strong against sword icon units, because though they may be high aggression, they lack defense, and as you might guess, sword troops are strong against shield. It's the traditional rock, paper, scissors dynamic. But I should note that heroes exist outside of this triangle, and can generally be considered strong against everything. You win a game of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin by capturing points on the map called Arcane Conduits and, quite literally, Victory Points. The Arcane Conduits allow you to erect buildings that give you either resources, healing, or act like defensive towers harming nearby enemies, and each faction has their own slightly different take on what these buildings do. Victory points, though, give you literal victory points. But in this game, victory points don't count up. They actually count down your enemy's total. So long as you have more victory points than them, it will slowly damage their victory number. And when it reaches 0, you win the game. When you first start a map, it's a good idea to rush them as fast as possible because the first victory cap is always the fastest. One reason you'll want to vary it up though and also capture some arcane conduits is these give you both the command and realm stone resources, which are how you buy new units and upgrade them and your buildings with special abilities. You get a very small amount of command passively over the course of a battle, but if you want realm stone, you're gonna have to build a generator building for it in the arcane conduits. And while you start with a very limited amount of squads you can field at the same time, arcane conduits allow you to increase your total troop count. And your main base building, as it upgrades through the tiers, will also increase this troop count and give you access to higher tiers of troops. At any point during a match, you can walk a squad onto an arcane conduit or victory point and claim it for yourself. But do note that more people on a point does not make it capture faster, so spread your guys out and take the whole map at once. Every unit in the game has an upgrade of some kind, which gives it new and exciting abilities that play toward your faction's larger theme. For the case of the Night Haunt, this includes healing your units in battle, or instilling fear in your enemies during a wave assault. Some of the upgrades are mutually exclusive, so you can only pick one, and they can drastically change your playstyle for the rest of the battle. Now, if there's a lot of text on screen right now, you don't have to read it all over the course of a battle. If you go to the starting screen and click that button in the bottom of the corner, it actually brings up a list of all the units and possible upgrades for you to study outside of the battle. So don't think this is something you have to study in the moment, because there's a lot of micro to learn here, as both your units and heroes have both active and passive abilities, meaning some of them you'll actually have to use in battle, and you should definitely use them, as a well-placed spell can turn the tide of any fight. But you'll notice that most of these either have a command or realm stone cost, so don't try and spend it all on buildings before you get into a fight. The default difficulty for Realms of Ruin is medium, but I would actually recommend you start on easy. The units move 30% faster than they did in earlier builds of the game and can really zip around if you're not used to the style of combat, so don't feel embarrassed if you have to drop it down just to learn for your first couple matches. And the retreat button in the bottom corner is not there to mock you. Learning when to withdraw them back to your Bastion home base so that they can heal up and then go back out and fight again is a critical part to the flow of any match, because your command and Realmstone resources will be hard fought to acquire and shouldn't ever be thrown away. If you're like me and sort of lazy and like to play on a couch, you can actually use a controller to play the entire game, using a new system developed by Frontier Games called Direct Step. The idea is that all the major actions you'll take during a regular battle are already easily mapped to a Xbox or PlayStation controller, which is why this game is getting a simultaneous release on consoles, making it one of the few RTS games available in that format. And from my experience, it works pretty well. You'll notice a similar layout for both of them here, so if you choose to switch back and forth, you should still feel familiar with it. The last tip I'll leave you with is purely aesthetic. You can paint your units. Seriously, you can change completely how they look beyond the default 4 colorings, altering their army livery by using actual Games Workshop Citadel colors no less. And it's not just changing the faction's whole color scheme at once. You can go down to the individual unit level and unleash your artistic assault upon the world. Being able to pick colors and customize your units to your heart's content may not seem like a big deal, but it gives you that extra little bit of personalization, and especially if you have kids at home, this is especially fun for them to play around with, as mine have been entertained for hours. And those are my tips and things to know before your first game of Realms of Ruin. The game itself comes out on November 17th, 2023, and armed with these, hopefully you'll be ready to reclaim the realms in the name of Sigmar. Thanks for watching.